Can you all hear me, Matt? Can you hear me, Matt?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
You can hear me? Okay, I'm on the train. I suppose you can hear the rumbling. I'm going from Milan to Rome. So I'll do my best, okay? Can you all nod if you heard me? Because I can't hear you well at all. Okay, good. Yeah, I had to wear the mask, so I hope. A nice fast train, and they got it, and I paid a fancy price, so they've got an office on the train, which is most handy, a little meeting room. So it's very convenient. Okay, people, here we are for 30 little minutes again to make the most of our time, to observe our minds, to focus on our mind, to control our mind, to discipline our mind, to develop our mind. That's the job to be done. So we think just for this 30 minutes, we'll do our best. And if for this during this 30 minutes, we gain something, we gain some insight into our mind, then it's been successful. Then it's amazing. Okay. Maybe I should close the door here. No, I think it's okay. All right. So let me think what to do. What shall we do? There we go. Okay. So let's just first get our bodies as well as we can, nicely settled. Always remembering that our body doesn't meditate, but it's appropriate to have it in a conducive position. Okay, I'm going to close the door. Hang on, I have to close the other door. I can't get past, it's so tight. I'll give up. Okay. I'm sorry. Nothing. I'm sorry. May I speak English? Sorry. Oh, nothing. Very kind. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, everybody. They might interrupt me and ask me what I want, a cup of tea or something. So we'll do our best. So get your body clear. Always like to say that His Holiness Dalai Lama says that the ideal position is the position of the great yogis, which is to have your two legs up in this full lotus position, because it's super practical. It's because when the body is like that, it's incredibly stable. So the yogis can stay like that literally for weeks and months because the body doesn't topple over. And also at a subtle level, all our subtler physical energies are aligned very smooth, very nicely. So if we can do that, how marvelous. If not, one leg on the other side. If not, ordinary cross-legged. If not that, in a chair. If not that, standing up, whatever you can do, okay? And the next thing is your back. So clearly the back is not straight, but it should be upright. So again, this increases the ability of the subtler wind energies, which is connected to our mind, to flow smoothly through the body, so the mind doesn't get sort of dull. And then the next one is your hands in this mudra or gesture in your lap. There's many positions the yogis have, but the typical one we learn is the left hand underneath and the right hand, the right hand underneath, the left hand on top, thumbs touching, forming a triangle. And then the key thing is your head slightly tilted forward, chin tucked in, and your lips slightly apart, the tip of the tongue behind your top teeth. All the yogis have found this prevents you from having to dribble and swallow your spit all the time. And then the eyes looking down, as if you're looking along your nose towards the ground. So just note each of these points and settle into this position, but then you forget about the body, because the body doesn't meditate. It's really important because we're so addicted to our bodies. If our body feels nice, we think we had a nice meditation. That's got nothing to do with it. You know, meditation is a function of your mind. Okay. So let's do the 9-round breathing meditation. This is the technique the Lamas often use before you do other practices to steady the mind, steady the wind energies, because the Vajrayana model talks about how the winds connected. So if the winds are agitated, the mind is agitated, and vice versa. So we try to steady the winds by using our breath in order to steady our mind. So this 9-round breathing, I'll just remind you, and then you do it at your own pace. So using Lama Yeshe's way of doing it, that's a very sweet, simple way he does things for us, as he mentions in his Mahamudra book. So the first 3 breaths, you imagine all the air leaving through your right nostril, and then that is what it is, imagine it's all your attachment energy, your emotional hunger, your neediness, your expectation, your possessiveness, your dissatisfaction. All of this is a function of attachment. All that energy that drives us at the subtlest level. All of this completely disappearing, like yucky smoke disappearing into the universe. Really imagine that, want that as you breathe out. And then, of course, when you have to breathe in, so when you breathe in, you imagine all the blissful energy of the universe, all the holy beings, all our own marvelous potential, like light, breathing in through the right nostril. And then you can imagine it kind of driving out all the attachment energy through the left nostril. It kind of flows in and then flows out. So obviously this technique is using the breath, but it's also using your mind, you're using your concepts, you're imagining, you're visualizing, you know. So 3 times out through the left, your attachments, dissatisfaction, emotional hunger, always wanting something more, possessiveness, anxiety, all the fears that come from this, disappearing like yucky smoke into the universe, and have confidence, because the fact of the matter is attachment's not at the core of our being. Then the next 3 you reverse, you know, out through the right, it's all your anger, aversion, frustration, disappointment, depression, all this spectrum of aversion, totally disappearing, which is a response when attachment doesn't get what it wants. Totally disappearing through your right nostril, this yucky smoke disappearing into space. And then as you breathe in through the left, all the blissful light energy of all the universe, all the holy beings and your own potential, radiant light coming in through your left nostril, driving out all the aversion energy through the right. Again, visualizing, wanting, focusing with your mind, and also feeling the energy of the airs. And the last 3, the third of the 3 poisons is this ignorance. And so in here, in particular here, the root ignorance, the grasping of this inherent, separate, concrete, solid me, this deepest ignorance. Imagine strongly through both nostrils, you're breathing out this yucky smoke, this energy disappearing into space. When you breathe in through both, blissful light, and it's the wisdom of all the Buddhas, the wisdom that realizes how is bliss. And imagine breathing this in. Which is your potential. So the first 3 aversion, the next 3 both, and it isn't just if you forget, you start again and do it at your own pace. Nice, complete breaths, but not forced. They shouldn't be loud. From determination. Now do this practice for a few minutes. So now we can, with a steady mind, we now visualize the Buddha of wisdom, Manjushri, Manju, gentle voice, and then Shri is something like Lord. In Tibetan, it's Jamyang, gentle voice. So he's in the Bodhisattva style, like Tara, like Chenrezig, like all these peaceful Buddhas in the Kriya Tantra. His Bodhisattva style, similar, sitting cross-legged on a multicolored lotus, and on the lotus there's a sun disk and a moon disk, which represent wisdom and compassion. And then he's got an orange-colored body. It's in his, where's his left hand? I forget his left hand. What's he doing? I think it's holding. His right hand is holding a sword. Anyway, his left hand I think is holding a text. I suddenly can't remember where. He's holding the teachings of wisdom, Buddha's teachings of wisdom, Prajnaparamita. His right hand is holding a sword with a tip with fire on the end, and it's held aloft, and it's cutting through ignorance. And so, of course, we're discussing here specifically the root ignorance, the cause of all the problems, this primordial grasping that I and everything else having an intrinsic, concrete, solid nature. So generally, this is abstract for us, but we can just look at the meaning of it a little bit. So there's Manjushri in the sky, orange, radiant, blissful, this bodhisattva style, you know, typically with the five-pointed crown, as you see in the pictures, decorated beautifully, and holding the sword and holding the Prajnaparamita, I think, in the other text, the other hand. So, and if we have a spiritual teacher, a guru, a spiritual mentor, a lama, all these words mean the same thing, the person that we have, or the people, many of them, whom we have chosen to be the Buddha for us, we imagine it's their mind manifesting as Manjushri. Think of Manjushri, like all these Buddhas, think of them as like a mirror image of our own potential, showing us how we can become. If you looked at a picture of, you know, a tennis player, a perfect tennis player, they're showing you exactly what you can become, exactly how it is here. Of course, you have to learn the meaning of these Buddhas, but the essence of it here is getting wisdom. So wisdom, it sounds a bit abstract sometimes. When we understand the key function of all the delusions, the root delusion is grasping at an inherent me, which gives rise to attachment to get what that me wants, which gives rise to the panic attack of aversion when it doesn't, which give rise to all the other crazy delusions, you know, the stuff that makes us suffer. Wisdom is the exact opposite of what we experience when we're caught up in these. When we're caught up in these, one, they cause us suffering, but two, because they're misconceptions, they completely blind us from seeing reality at many different levels, you know, many different levels. If we see things through the lens of attachment, we over-exaggerate their deliciousness. We over-exaggerate their function in making us happy. If we see through things through the lenses of aversion or anger, we're convinced that all those things are ugly and cause us suffering. As Lama Zopa says, you know, when we see things through the lenses, through all the different delusions, rooted in the root delusion, the world appears back to us in a way that simply isn't true. So wisdom is what we get when we cut through these, when we stop these, when we start to be in touch with reality at a conventional level, and then finally, ultimately. So, of course, the benefit of wisdom, of seeing things as they are, is that you stop suffering. I mean, this is the bonus, you know, this is Buddha's method for stopping suffering. Who's suffering? My suffering. Then we know how to help others. And what comes with when we stop suffering, and we don't quite often join the dots here, it's so simple. What comes when we don't have suffering is happiness, happy feelings, joy, contentment. This is our potential. And this is basically Buddha's method for getting rid of suffering. So we should be so delighted that we have methods to do this. So we visualize from Lama Manjushri, Guru Manjushri, Manju, gentle voice, radiant orange beams of light come from his heart. enter into our heart and completely fill us and totally annihilate this ego grasping, this which is rooted in fear. This is what's amazing and what we don't notice. It's rooted in fear. All this primordial delusion. And when we've realized this wisdom, then there is no fear, as Lama Zopa says. This is something surprising to us. So imagine full of this radiant orange light, and we will recite the mantra. So maybe you don't know it, so why don't you repeat it after me 3 times, get the oral transmission of it. Om, say it after me. I can't hear you, but I'm assuming you're hearing me. So Om, A, Ra, Pa, Sa, Na, Di. Om, A, Ra, Pa, Sa, Na, Di. Om, A, Ra, Pa, Sa, Na, Di. Strongly visualizing this orange light, filling us completely, burning up all this nonsense, all the root delusion and all the other delusions as well. Omara Patsanadi, 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 Omara Patsanadi. So now when we finish this one, this first visualization, we now, when you do the recitation, you hold this D. They talk about all these mantras. They talk about, there's a subtler, which is an audio representation of this Buddha. So the D is what they call this, in this case, the seed syllable, which is the very essence of the mantra. So at the end, the D, D-H-I-D. So what we're going to do is we say the mantra and then we hold our breath and we say the D as long as we can, like this, you know, and imagining as we say it, our ego grasping completely being smashed, totally being smashed. You hold your breath as much as you can and you say, oh, like this. Omara Pasani, Omara Pasini, and you swallow and imagine it's completely purified your delusion, smash the ignorance, imagine that, you're so happy. So now again, we imagine this orange light, blissfully, powerfully coming from Manjushi's heart, blazing into our heart, filling us completely. And this time, so happily, we imagine now the delusions have gone. What have we got? We've only got wisdom. The wisdom that understands that things do not have an intrinsic nature, that there is no I from its own side. There's no I in and of itself, from itself, as Amisa says. There's no intrinsic I. There's no inherent I. All these are synonymous. There's no I that is independent of other things. This is what ignorance thinks. We don't realize we think this, it's so instinctive. But ignorance believes, this maripa, this ego grasping, believes utterly there's a real, pointable, findable, intrinsic I, independent of causes, independent of the parts of all the person, and independent, finally, of the mind labeling I. This is what we have to learn and discover the truth of. So now we imagine, because we've done it, we visualize it, we imagine this ignorance has gone. So now we're full of the wisdom that realizes this. So how would that be like? Well, just the words, you know, it would mean we no longer have a separate sense of I. We no longer have, therefore, attachment because there's no I to be attached to. We would no longer have anger because there's no anger that would arise because there's no attachment. And because all the delusions come from these three, we would have none of those as well. I mean, this is amazing. I'm so sorry. So we visualize. And so the bonus from all of this is we're joyful. This is something we don't often think about. Happiness, pleasure, joyful feelings come from a mind that is wise and virtuous. That's the entire point in Buddhism. So imagine being full of virtue, full of wisdom, full of clarity, and full of joy, not to mention compassion and all the rest. These are our natural state as we strongly visualize this orange light and as we say the mantra, flooding into us this powerful energy from Lama Manjushri. Omara Pasanadi, Omara Pasanadi, Omara Pasanadi, Omara Pasanadi, Omara Pasanadi, Omara Pasanadi. Omara Pasanadi, Omara Pasanadi, Omara Pasanadi, Omara Pasanadi. Omara Pasanadi. Swallow and imagine full of this joy, full of this bliss, full of this clarity, full of this wisdom, our own true nature. This is who we actually are. Have confidence in that. So happy, full of this radiant orange light, this wisdom from the Lama Manjushri. Our wisdom, same thing. And now imagine his lotus dissolves up into his body. And he very happily just comes and absorbs, kind of comes to our crown, the energy of body, speech, and mind of our Lama, the energy of the body, speech, and mind of the Buddha Manjushri, and our body, speech, and mind completely merge. They become one. Same thing. So just for a minute or two, as we often do, just imagine as vast you are, as vast as space. Oneness with all this perfect energy. No thoughts for a couple of minutes. Big as the universe. Okay, then relax now. That's it, everybody. Okay, darling. That was it. It's gone like a dream now. 27 minutes. So quick, isn't it? Life's going quickly. So we get a feeling of not wasting time, okay? Not wasting our lives. So it's the beginning of the day for you in Santa Fe at 7 o'clock or 10 o'clock on the East Coast. It's 9 o'clock. Make the most of the day. It's the end of the day or middle, like for me in Rome. Where am I? Italy. Yeah, in Italy. What is it here? It's 3:13. So still alive. Make the most of it. Do our best. Okay, that's all I can say. And we delight. Thank you, Ash. Thank you, darling. Thank you, everybody. So
Thank you, Venerable Robina.
Thank you, Venerable.
Thank you, Venerable Rabina.